Year after year, graphics have progressed at an incredible rate, moving toward this goal of ultimate realism and raw power. But we're at the point that maybe we should start asking, what does realism really mean? Just about as long as 3D graphics have been a thing, the goal we've visualized at the top of this metaphorical mountain is complete and total realism. But because of graphical limitations and computational limitations of the times, we've never really quite been there. This forced developers to work around these limitations and author their stuff to work just about as well as it could, given the circumstances. Not that I think every game is trying to be realistic, but I think there's an element of realism in every game, no matter the style. In recent years, however, we've seen something incredible happen. We've seen 3D graphics in games get to a point that they're on par with high-budget movies, even some games taking advantage of that and becoming interactive movies in a sense. But as Epic Games preps to release Unreal Engine 6 before any AAA developers have even figured out how to optimize their Unreal Engine 5 games, it yet again begs the question, do we really know what realism means? I argue that, with graphics where they are now, we ought to broaden our definition to be something different than if a screenshot looks exactly like a photograph. Here we see two games, Half-Life 2 and Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I think from just screenshots alone, you would say that Cyberpunk 2077 is more realistic than Half-Life 2. By a landslide. I mean, Half-Life 2 came out in 2004 and the episodes in 2007, so of course. But that's not the whole story, is it? I think a lot of people will agree when I make the point that, even though they're visually dated, Half-Life 2 and the episodes are by far the most realistic games I've ever played. Period. But how does that make any sense? I mean, compare this photo I took in Montana to Half-Life 2 Episode 2. They look similar, but one is obviously a video game, so what gives? Possibly in part due to the limitations of the time and of the source engine, Half-Life 2 and the episodes were required to put more emphasis on other parts of their game. This applied to other games of the time period as well. This meant that storytelling and world building and interactivity and all these other more believable things triumphed and were more key aspects of the game. Even though the source engine was pretty for the time, visuals alone weren't really at a point that you could sell an entire product with them. Foreshadowing. And this, I think, is the key takeaway from Half-Life 2 and the episodes. That realism, or the sense of realism, is a lot more dependent on believability, the sense that the world you live in moves on without you. I don't think there's a game that demonstrates this better than Episode 2. Episode 2 needs no introduction, I'm sure. It's a sprawling adventure that feels like being on the precipice of conquering an all-powerful evil. On top of that, it's the best post-apocalyptic romance game I've ever played. You can feel that by the end of the game, Alex tagging along with Gordon has grown their relationship palpably, even if their dialogue is only really ever one-sided. It's a specific feeling of care that I've never really felt in a game before. Because of this, and just how real the Combine end up feeling throughout the course of Episode 2, Episode 2 lends itself to feeling very palpably real. Even though one screenshot doesn't look exactly like reality, the feeling of playing the game feels like playing through a complete reality, one that isn't too far removed from your own. Returning to our previous comparison, let's take a look at Cyberpunk 2077. It's a game that might on the surface look quite good, and comparing it to some photo of a city that I didn't take because I don't like the city, sure, but the game is about as shallow as a puddle when it comes to realism, in my opinion. And no, that's not because it's some crazy biomechanical future with a bunch of these implantations and modifications. I actually think that's rad as hell. It's rather because it always feels like the characters I interact with were placed there for me to interact with. I don't feel like I'm a part of the world, I feel like I'm just observing it, as if it were put there together specifically for me to observe. It's nothing to do with the protagonist talking either. Take a game like Firewatch, one of my all-time favorites in fact. Henry talks constantly, in fact that's kind of the point. Yet despite Firewatch being a lot more stylized than Cyberpunk 2077 and not looking like a photograph, I still find it feeling a lot more realistic. I believe that this again comes down to writing and interactivity. In Firewatch, I feel like I am Henry, I feel like I am talking to Delilah, and I feel like I am running away from all my life's problems and stresses by running away to some remote location. But in Cyberpunk 2077, I feel like I'm playing a video game where the character does these things, and I'm merely a pilot where I have no bearing on the world. These criticisms extend to games that people actually like too, like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, though I have to admit I never really got into it that much, so take that with a grain of salt. Point is, I think a lot of games can get into the mindset of thinking, especially with the popularity of Unreal 5 and surely Unreal 6 to follow, that their realism is solved by having a pretty screenshot slop engine. Add that to your vernacular. With that said, however, it is important to note that visuals do matter. Visuals are an important part of a game's believability, no doubt about it. It's the first and only thing that you, well, see. But in my personal opinion, complete photorealism is the wrong way. What in the world does that mean? How can photorealism be wrong? Well, allow me to demonstrate. Right now, I want you to close your eyes and think of a picturesque sunset. Actually play along. What do you actually think of? Is it the orange color of the sunlight itself, that slight pinkish color that it turns to moments before it disappears behind the mountain? Is it the deep blue color of the shadows? Whatever it be, put a pin in that, and I want you to now open your eyes and take a look at this completely unedited picture of a sunset. Still pretty, but it's not quite what you imagined, is it? Okay. Now let me edit this photo. I have edited this photo to match more what I see in my own mind when I think of a sunset. Does this feel more real to you? I assume the answer is yes, because this exact thing is what most of our phones do to our photos anyway. Our brains don't remember anything as raw photographs. We remember the feelings associated with them, or those colors, and that's what we connect with. So why focus so much on complete scientific accuracy? Point being, we shouldn't focus so much on how well these medias completely replicate the real world in a literal scientific sense, unless that's your job. Instead, I think we should focus more on imitating the feeling associated with these things, and associated with how you feel about them, how you want the player to feel, because that's the point of media, isn't it? Take my engine, for example. Objectively, not very realistic, but the feelings created from the lighting are, in my opinion, a lot more like the same feelings I get from real lighting, even though it is largely physically inaccurate. The key takeaway from this shouldn't be that visuals don't matter, or that any specific part of game development trumps another part. That's the opposite of what I'm saying. All parts of a game are equally as important to its believability, regardless of the art style or whatever else of the game. What I really want you to take away from this is that a game, movie, or story should not attempt to perfectly mimic exactly what happens in the real world. The real world is often bland, boring, and a lot less vibrant and colorful than what we remember, both metaphorically and literally. Instead, these media should focus on giving us the same feelings that these vistas, events, and story beats give us in the real world. A romantic plotline shouldn't focus on all the boring downtime and years where nothing interesting really happens just because it's realistic. It should feel like an ever-evolving romantic plotline, even if the main character is mute. Not that including the bland parts of reality is wrong all the time. It should just be used tastefully. Half-Life 2 and the episodes definitely include a lot more downtime and slower-paced moments, but it's not just because that's what happens in the real world. Overall, though, the current landscape of gaming is that it just needs to look good to sell. A game can be the most boring, uninteresting, and shallow thing you've ever seen, but as long as it's made with UE5, it'll sell like hotcakes. We, both as developers and consumers, should set higher standards. We ought to focus on filling these worlds with something worth looking at before wasting a ton of processing power rendering them. And thanks as usual for watching. The names scrolling here are my YouTube members and Patreon members, which you can join in both places. You'll get early access to new videos, and Godly Raisins will get occasional bonus videos. I do mean occasional. But Don't worry, if you don't have a penny to spare, that's totally fine. I just appreciate you commenting, sharing, or even just watching this video all the way through. Maybe someday I'll even be able to reach 10K. I kid myself, but thank you for watching. Oh, I think I did it.